main.py. In main.py, I have written code where I am just for now printing something, and I am printing in my main function, right? And in my UI file, I am importing the same modules here as well. And here I am printing that this is visible layout. Okay, and I have written all the code for my front end, right? Up to some days, I find everything going well. I was able to handle these two files, and I was also able to handle or add new features to my project, right? But after some time, I hired a guy because there was some part I was not proficient with. So I hired a guy who has experience on that part, and I have now started working with him. Okay, so what I do, I create the code and I share the code with him so that he can write his own part, right? So to understand or to just maintain what we have been doing, these things, adding these files or functionality, what we can do is each day we can create a folder. Let's say on day 1, I have done something, and on day 2, I have added more features. So I will be able to remember that on day 1, I had added only initial features. On day 2, I have added some more features. And every day after completing my code, I can share my folder to my other developer, right? But in case, as we move forward, as we keep on adding new features to our project, it becomes very difficult to manage lots of folder. Let's say we have worked till 50 days. So in that case, we will be having at least 50 folders, right? And we can run our application and test our application after 50 days. And if, let's say, if something doesn't work out, so we would like to go back to our folder, which was 1 day earlier, where it was actually running. Let's say it was running well on 49th day. So we took all the code that was written until day 49. But as soon as some new feature or let's say bug fixing was done on day 50, in that case, I have now a problem with my project. So I want to roll back and remove that issue. So what I can do is I can use the folder number app day 49 and I can test my application. And until my bug is fixed in this folder, I will not be able to run my project properly, and I will not be able to run it in live production environment, right? But in this scenario, when we will have lots of folder, it will really become very heavy and complex to manage, as well as it will be taking lot of space in our own system. Moreover, when we are sharing with other developers, in that case, it is becoming more troublesome, right? So in that case, as we keep on growing our team, as we keep on hiring new candidates, we will have to share this folder with everyone, right? So people came with an idea that instead of maintaining such folders, we can have a repository, a database where we can store all our files and we can then transfer this database to other team members. And using this database, they can work on whatever features they are writing. And after they have completed their work, they can just save the files in this database, or you can also call it as repository. But this was limited to the system on which developers are working. Let's say I have added a payment method in my app. Okay. And unfortunately, my system crashed, right? So whatever code I had for payment method will not be available to other developers working in my team, right? So people said that instead of saving this repository in your local system, we can have a centralized server. Okay. And on that centralized server, we can save our repository. And whoever wants to work with that server, they can just copy the code from the central server and again continue to work on it, right? But let's say if someone wants to work without accessing internet, then he will not be able to update the code. Let's say I am traveling, and during traveling I have written some code, I have added some features, but this feature I am not able to push to this central repository or central server, so other members will not get updated with the latest code, right? So a new concept was developed, which was Git, and it was developed from the Linux team. Okay, Linux team, they were writing their own source code. They were writing the kernel source code. And while they were writing, their source code was managed by a third party company. Okay, right? Due to some issue, they stopped support to this source code that Linux team was writing. So Linux team, what they did, they just listed all the problems that they were facing during the development related to maintaining the source code. And they came up with the new idea by introducing Git version control system. Okay, so this Git version control system was written actually in C language. Okay, and it was able to remove all the issues that were occurring before it was when they were using other systems, other version control system. So in this Git version control system, they came with the idea that even if you are not able to connect with the internet, you can store a local repository on your system with all the history, all the code which was present earlier as well, right? So complete code will always be present with every developer, whether he's connected with the central repository or he is offline. Okay. So he can just keep on doing the changes and store it in local repository. And if they want to collaborate, they can have a hosting platform. Okay, hosting platform, which is actually GitHub. They can push their code after they have completed their work on GitHub, and from there people can clone the code in their local system. Other developers can clone the code in their local system and they can start working on it. That is why in Git we call it clone. We don't call it checkout, we call it clone, because when you clone it, you get the exact copy of the repository which is present on your hosting platform, like GitHub, right? So let us see how we can introduce version controlling in our project. So our project is app, right? So instead of now having multiple folders, what we can do is we can have a single folder. I'll delete all these folders. And now we can have a single folder called app. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to introduce version controlling system in my application, which means whatever the files that I am having in this repository, in this folder, like main.py or ui.py, let me move there. I want I want them to get version control. So the very first thing that I will be doing is I will be running git init command, okay, which makes my folder. I will be running the git init command, which will make my folder to go under version control of Git. So as soon as I run git init, now all my files that I am writing, they will automatically be saved in my local Git repository. And if I want to check out older version, I can very quickly check out whatever I have done in earlier versions of my project, and I can roll back my project to whatever version I want and make my project go live with whatever the version is working fine, right? When I have run git init, a hidden folder called .git has been added here. If I run dir, in that case, since it is a hidden folder, so I will not be able to see it, but I can find out by running the cd.get command. So here I see some files as well as folder has been created in my application besides whatever the code I have written. So this git init folder is responsible. It is having all the configuration. It is having all the required files and as well as all the directories, which is responsible for handling everything related to version controlling of my project, right? Let me go back. Here, I am not able to see because they are the .git folder is hidden. But when I go into .git folder, I have some files and folder created. The first file that I can see is config. Config will have all the information related to your repository that you are going to create. When I ran the git init command, a local repository was created and the information related to that local repository will be available in this folder. Second file that I have is description file. This will be holding all the information related to your project as well as the repository that you have created. So if you want to add readme file or if you want to have add some description to your project, you can just edit this file and add your own description. Then I have another file which is called head, right? Head will contain the pointer to your repository. The latest version that you have in your repository will be pointed out by a pointer called head. Okay. So let's say I have written 1.2 to 1.6 versions of my project. My latest version is 1.6. So pointer will be actually pointing to this latest version of my project, right? There are concepts of branching as well. So I'll tell how head is used for branching. Then we have directories like hooks, where again we have some files and directory. They are a bit complex. You don't need to go into them because we'll be understanding about these hooks later when we have written some more files and added our Git repository. We have created more branches, then we'll be understanding what is hooks. Another is info. So in info also, you will get information about what files to have in your repository and what files to remove. Object will be every commit that you made in your GitHub. So until now, I have not made any commits, so I will not be able to see any objective. Okay. So then we have reference. Reference will be pointing to the latest branch that you are working on. So first, before going into these concepts, let us create our repository first. So the first command that I ran was get init. You can again run this command. It will reinitialize the repository by updating all these files that we have seen here, right? Now I want to make my files to get under version control. Git works in 3 stages. The first stage is your working tree. Second is your local repo. Second is your staging. Then we have local repo, from which you can push it to remote hosting platforms like GitHub, right? So until now, we have run only git init command and we have initialized our repository. Now I want my files to get into this working tree stage. For this, I'll be running the command git add. Let's say I want to add only one file to version control. So I can use that file name. Let's say if I want to make only main.py to go and get version control or move into working tree. In that case, I'll be able to, I can just write my file name as main.py. But in this scenario, I want to add all my files. So in that case, I can write either hyphen all, or I can just use a dot. Dot means all the files present in current directory. So as soon as I run git add dot, all the files that I have, they come under working tree. So UI.py as well as main.py are now under working tree. If I want to know the status of my Git repository, if I want to understand where are my files currently, so in that case, I can run the command git status. Git status will tell us that where my files are, on which branch I am working, and whether I have created a new file, I have introduced a new file to version control system, or I have modified any existing file. So here, as I run git status command, I can see that currently I'm working on a master branch. I have not done any commit. Commit means you're done with your code changes and you are finally introducing your code to the local Git repository. Here it says that we have two new files. One is main.py and another is ui.py, right? Next thing that I want to, if I want to modify, let's say I forgot to add one more line in my main.py. So if I want to get that file back into my local system, I want to remove it back from a working directory to my local system. In that case, I can simply run the command git ram cast file name. Let's say it is main.py. Then in that case, it will remove main.py from the working, right? So now if I run git status, I can see that only one file is available which can be committed, and I have removed back my main.py to do some more changes. If they are not going under version control, they will be coming into the category called untracked files, right? And all those files which you have added, they comes under tracked file. So let me add this file again. And if I run git status now, I can see that I have two files which can be committed to my local Git repository. For committing, I will be running the command git commit, and I also want to write a comment like what I have actually done in these files. So I can say that I have added initial features. spelling is wrong. Anyways, so here I can see I have written a comment called added initial features. The spelling is wrong. Just ignore it. So now I can find that two files have been changed and they have been now moved from working tree to my local repository. Okay, initially these two files were in working tree. When I ran git add command, they moved into the staging area. I can move them back to my working tree by running the git rm command. And when I will run the commit command, these files now will be moving to our local repository, right? If I run git status command now, I can see that there is no file which is available to do any commit. So now let us modify our main.py. Okay. And here I have added another line which is called modified. Modified this file. Okay. So now let me run git status once again. Here I can see that we have a file. Earlier it was a new file, but now I have modified an existing file. So now it is labeled as modified, right? So main.py is now modified. And if I run git add, in that case, after running git status, I can see that only one file is available for doing the commit, which is main.py. I have not done any changes to ui.py, so nothing will be shown for ui.py. But I have done some modification in main.py, so it is coming under modified and it is now ready to get committed. So I can commit it using the command git commit with -m is for message, or you can say comment. So I can write here as modify main.py. So now a new commit has been created. We can verify that by running the git status command. And here we can see there's nothing to commit. Every file which was required to move in our local repository okay. So nothing is in our working tree. Everything has gone to our local repository. Okay. Next thing, let's say I want to check all the commits that have happened, that has been done on this particular git repository. For that, I can run the command git logs, right? Git log. Okay. So it will show me all the command that I have, all the commits that I have done into this repository, and I can recognize whatever commit, whatever the changes I have done in each commit by the comments which I have written. So here, let's say I had added initial features, so I can recognize that this commit is having all the files which has these features. And after modification, I had another commit. And if I want to roll back from this commit to this commit, I can just use my commit ID and get back to this previous version. If my new version after modification is not working, I can switch back to this commit. I can run git revert command. Let's say I want to do revert. So I can use this. And now I can write a comment why I am reverting. So here I will be writing that modified main file rollback. Can write rollback, and then I can save this file. And now my commit will be rolled back. So if I go to main.5, now if I run git log, I can see that I have 3 commits now. One commit is for rolling back, that is revert, which I have done, and other 2 commits was done earlier. First was for initial feature, second one was for modification, right? So now in this commit, we will not have the modified main.py file. We will have the same file which we had in this commit, which was adding initial features, right? So now, sorry, I have a local repository created and I want to share this code. I want to move this code to my repository hosting platform, which is called GitHub. Okay. For that, you and your team should have an account on GitHub. Okay. So let us go to github.com. Here I already have a account. You can also create an account. You can just sign out. And for creating a new account, what you can do is you can just provide your details and it will be able to create a new account for you. Slow. Okay. Now this GitHub platform is also integrated with Git. Okay. It gives you a complete UI for creating and managing repositories. Okay. So instead of running the commands, here you'll be having buttons which you can click for creating new repositories. There you can directly add files, you can directly modify any file, and you can directly do the commit as well, right? So in our case, if I sign out and if I want to create a new account, you can just provide your email address, sign up for Git. So if an email address is in that case, it will ask some questions to us, like for what purpose you are going to create an account, and then you can provide the details, and finally you'll be able to create a GitHub account. I already have an account, so it will not proceed further for me, right? So it is very easy to create an account. You just have to provide your details, so name, first name, last name, your email ID, and then you will have a GitHub account created for you. So we will not create a new account. We are going to work with our older account, which we already have. And on GitHub, when you push this buttons, when you click this button behind and in your backend, these git commands are run, which we have just run to create a repository. Okay. And we can move. Yes. Yeah, I've just shown you how to create a GitHub account. Go to github.com, provide your email address using which you want to create a GitHub account. Okay. And it is all going to ask you your details, like your name and everything. And you'll be able to create your account. Okay, so I'll continue with this. I'll create a password as well. And then I will have another pass. Need to change this. And I can now add a username. Let's say I want to add it as avi.srivas, and then dot. It will not take, it will take hyphen. If it is already there, so it will show it is not available. But if you want to have a new account, your username should be unique. Okay, so now it will send you a mail in your mail ID, whatever you have given, and then you can verify your account. But they will ask you to do these verifications as well. So I can rotate it. This direction. Okay. So verification has been done, and now I'll be able to see the account. If you want to save it, you can save a password. It will send you a verification code on your email address. You can go to your email address and you can provide your details. Check the code and I'll provide it here. My code is 21289 Okay, so now I'll be able to create a account on GitHub, right? My email ID has been verified. Now I can see that I have a GitHub account created. You can also create your GitHub account following the same procedure. And let's say I want to have a remote repository where I'll be pushing my local code into that location, right? So let me create and call it as app, right? You can use the simple plus button, or you can also have other options for creating your repository. You can just click on this logo, and here you are going to get options for creating new repository. You can create it from here, you can create it from here, or you can create it from here. Repositories that are hosted on GitHub platform, they have two types of visibility. One is private and another is public. We will discuss later what are public and private repository. But for now, we will be creating a public repository called app. So let us create the repository now. And now I want to push my local repository, which is present in my system, right? When I wrote this command. So now I want to make it go to GitHub, right? And whenever new developer wants to add some features to my GitHub, to my code, what they can do is they can simply clone the code in their own system and they can start working on it, right? So now this repository is empty. This is an empty repository, and I want to push my code to this particular repository. my local repository to this particular remote repository, for which I will have to first sync my local repository with the remote repository. And for doing this, we have a command which is called git remote add origin and then the URL of your repository. You can get the URL of your repository by clicking on code, or you can just copy it from here. Copy the HTTPS part, HTTPS URL, and then you can add this repository. Okay. One thing again you'll have to do is you will have to configure your email as well as username with your Git repository, which is present on your local. So for that, I'll be running the command git config user.email, which is a okay, and I will be configuring user.name as well. So user.email and user.name you have to configure. If you have forgotten your username, you can get it from here. It is ab-srivas2808. Whenever someone asks that what is your repository username, you are not going to give your email address, you are going to give your username. They'll be able to find you on GitHub, right? So the next thing that I'm going to do now is I will be pushing this code, my local repository, to GitHub remote repository, which is git. The command is git push origin master. And then you'll get a pop-up using which you will have to sign into your GitHub repository from your command line. Okay, so I can use browser, sign it with browser. We also have other options. I'll show them when we are discussing about them. So now authentication is succeeded and we are able to push our local repository to GitHub, right? So if I go to my GitHub account, which I just created, so I'll be able to see these files available now, main.py and ui.py. Okay, and a branch, by default branch, which is called master, has been created. By default, GitHub will always create a master branch for you. If you want to change the name from master to something else like main, in that case, we have option to do the changes, right? This repository is now available here and it can be cloned by any other developer working in that team. So for, let's say, some other developer has joined the team, and let me make a folder for him. Let me call developer2. So assume that this developer2 is actually a new machine, and this is the machine of developer2 where he is working, and he wants to get this code on his local machine. So he can run the command git clone and copy the HTTPS URL, and then he'll be able to clone the source code in his own local system, right? So now if I move into app folder and if I see the files there, I'll be able to find out that these files are present. So let's say developer2 has also done some changes. Okay, in main.py, and he now the next thing that now he do not need to run the git init command because the repository has already been created and it was already available on GitHub. He has just cloned it and got his in his local system. So he do not need to run git init command. To verify that, he can just run git status command. And here you will see that currently he's working on master branch and he has modified one file called main.py. If this was not a git repository, by running git status command, he will be getting an error, which will be like this. So if I run git status command here in another folder, it will say that this is not a git repository, but app folder is a git repository. So after running git status, we are getting this output, right? So now he can again add main.py file, and now he can do some more commit. Okay, and finally he can directly push the code to GitHub. After he has completed his work, he can push the code back to GitHub. So if I refresh this, I can see it has just been pushed and his lines has been added here, which is added by dev2, right? So in this way, many developers can collaborate on GitHub. They can create their own GitHub repository and they can push it on GitHub where they can work on their project, right? Then we can check again by running the git log command about all the commits that has been done till now. So when it doesn't matter who has done the commit, but if someone is running git log command, he will be getting information about the commits that has been done since day one. So whatever the commit has been done on that particular branch or that particular repository will be shown here. Now, if we go to our git.git repository directory, we will see that now the files has been updated. So if I go to we have got a new file which is called commit. So all the commit messages done by this particular user will be available here. All the latest commit message will be available here. And if I open config, in that case, now I can see it has added the URL of our Git repository and it has also updated the reference, right? So it has earlier we were able to see only these parts, but now these two configuration has been added. One is origin, another is our branch, which is master branch, right? So likewise, almost all the files have been updated. If I go to objects now, there I'll be able to see lots of commits done, like C457-2B. They are actually the commits which has been done. If I go to C4, we'll be able to see our commit. Okay. So you don't have to mess up these files. Do not touch these files. Just for understanding, I am explaining you. But by default, they are going to be present in all your Git repository. You don't have to modify anything related to these files. Okay. In real-time environment, when you work on a project, you do not commit everything directly to your main branch, right? There are some conventions that you have to follow. In general, we create a master branch, okay, where the final code is added. Okay, only the finalized code is added. Okay, the codes which has been reviewed, which has been approved, they are going to be added in this particular branch. We create a new branch called develop. Okay, where all the development thing can be done. If someone wants to add new files, someone wants to modify any existing feature or fix some issues, in that case, they can work on develop branch. And then we also create feature branches. Okay, feature branches, like if you want to add a cart in this application where you want to save all your selected items, in that case, you can create a feature branch for yourself, and you can do all the coding part there, and you can send it for approval. Once the approval has been done, these code will be added to this develop branch first. Okay, and this develop branch will be tested to check if any bugs or issues are there. If everything is fine, then we'll be moving this finalized code to the master branch, right? This process is actually called merging. Okay, and for every branch that you see here, we create CI/CD pipeline using Jenkins. Like if someone is working on feature branch, so what they can do is they can, as soon as they will commit their code, a pipeline will be created, which is going to build the project, test the project, and do all the steps that you have written, all the steps that you have configured in your Jenkins pipeline. We'll come to it later when we'll discuss Jenkins. But here, this is how you do branching to do parallel development. On the command line, you can create branches by running the git branch command and providing the branch name. Let's say I want to create a branch called develop. And if I want to check all the branches available in this Git repository, I can run git branch command, which will display all the branches present in this local repository. So earlier I had master branch, but I have also created a develop branch. So now we have two branches, master and develop. If I want to add one more branch, let's say feature, in that case, we can see that we have three branches now. The pointer that you see is actually the head pointer, which is pointing to the master branch, right? If I want to move to other branches, in that case, I can run the command git checkout and then the branch name. Okay, so now if I run git branch, I can see the pointer is now pointing to develop branch. Similarly, if I want to check out the feature branch, then I will see the pointer is now on checkout feature. Now if I run branch, I can see the pointer is now pointing to feature branch. And if I want to move this branch to my GitHub account, GitHub repository, then I can just simply run git add, git commit with a comment like added to branch, and then I can simply push it by running the command git push origin. Git push origin will be common for pushing, and now you'll have to provide the branch name which you want to push. So let us say I want to push feature branch. So now feature branch will be moved in our GitHub repository. So currently we have one branch only, but now we can see we have two branches. One is master and another one is feature. Similarly, we can go to our develop branch and we can push that develop branch to our GitHub repository. So if I go there, I can see now I have three branches available, right? Master, develop, and feature. So for doing development, when you'll start development, you will have a single branch, and when you proceed with the development, you can create more branches and work on those branches. So as soon as my feature branch will be completed, my code will be verified, it will be merged with the development branch and finally with the master branch. The code that is present in master branch will be used for running the application live, right? So here we'll be winding up the session. If you have any question, any doubt, you can ask, and then we'll move ahead with more new commands. We will understand our account settings in GitHub. We will understand the repository settings that is required to be done to protect our repository from attacks or getting our code stolen, right? So we will be discussing some more important Git commands which you are going to use in your daily life as a DevOps engineer. Okay. So now if you have any questions, just let me know and then we will wind up the session.
Sir?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
How can we run our GitLab commands?
You can run your Git command by installing Git in your system. For installing Git, you can just type git install. Okay. And you can go to downloads. And here you can just click download for Windows. Select 64-bit.
For that we need dashboard also?
Dashboard?
So
no, you just have to put this executable and you just have to click on this executable. It will just guide you what you have to do with the next steps and Git will be installed in your system.
How you open the command prompt, sir?
You can open the command prompt by going to your search button. Okay, print, just write CMD and then you can open a new command prompt.
Okay. So all the same, whatever you typed in today's, we can also try, right?
Yeah, you have to try actually. Okay. Maybe that next day I'll be asking you people to create a repository and do it for everyone. Okay, by sharing your screen.
Okay.
Any more questions from anyone else? Okay, then we'll be closing the session and we'll meet again tomorrow with new Git commands. Thank you all.